Well, back in the 60s, you probably remember the song, Sign, Signs Everywhere, a Sign. Everyone has heard this song.
Whoa, sign, sign, everywhere a sign. Blocking out to see it, re-breaking my mind. Do this, don't do that, can't you read the sign?
Well, today, the operative word might not be signs, it might be bans. Bans everywhere, a ban. In Vancouver, they've banned the plastic bag. Montreal followed suit. Then they talked about banning the water bottle. Well, back to Vancouver, or Vancouver, as I like to call it. And now they're discussing banning the paper coffee cup. Yes, the city that helped give birth to Starbucks across Canada is saying no more lattes in a paper cup. Ada Slavinsky is a columnist with Vancouver 24 Hours and a good friend of mine, and she joins me now from that fair city. Ada, what's going on? I love your city, but it drives me nuts sometimes. What's the latest?
Well, Brian, it seems like Vancouver City Council likes to think we live in this utopian society where plastic bags and coffee cups are our biggest problem. They're most certainly not in a city that still has a ton of homelessness, something that the mayor had wanted to address, but not homelessness, not looking at home prices. Now we're looking at banning the plastic bag and the coffee cup. And actually, years ago, this was something that came up in Vancouver City Council because other cities like San Francisco and LA were doing it. And council decided that they don't actually have jurisdiction to do this, that it falls under provincial jurisdiction. And now here they are bringing this up again. They want to spend our tax dollars to study whether or not they have jurisdiction to do this. And of course, nothing has changed between now and 2007 when this was originally discussed. So I don't think they will be able to do this in the first place, but they are considering now ticketing or banning plastic bags and coffee cups. So you could be walking down the street in the morning with your latte, a bylaw officer would stop you and fine you $100 for drinking out of a non-reusable cup.
Now, I have to say, right now, Roll Up the Rim to Win is on at Tim Hortons. Will we be seeing an increase in the climate footprint of Vancouverites as they drive out of Vancouver proper to get their Roll Up the Rim to Win at Timmy's if this goes through?
Well, Brian, you can actually play online. This was something that was brought up to me after, that was a question that people had
Really?
after I came out with my column. They said, what about Roll Up the Rim to Win? So first of all, not all Vancouverites do drink Starbucks. There is a big Tim Hortons following. So I learned as a result of this from a reader that you can play online and there is no purchase required. And if you go into Tim's actually right now with your reusable cup, they will give you a disposable cup. So that's not reducing your climate footprint at all. But I mean, it's definitely concerning to see these kind of moves from city council. This is, like you mentioned, a city that tries to ban things and is successful in banning things as simple as the doorknob. And they're repeatedly going past just educating the public and saying that they want to indoctrinate people basically and force them to do this. I just want to read you a quote discussing this kind of education indoctrination bit from the City Council report. So the report reads, ticketing will be reserved for more serious, deliberate, or repeated offenses and when education and warnings fail to achieve the required results.
What? Okay, so hold on. Repeat offenders, so there's going to be a database of how many times they've stopped me walking down the street with my coffee in a paper cup, and if I hit 5 or some magic number, then I get a fine?
Well, that's certainly what they're implying. I mean, I just think of how much the cost will be to taxpayers to have these bylaw officers and these, if it gets to a database. I mean, that just seems completely ridiculous. We're paying for that, and then on top we're paying a fine. And they really don't seem to understand what education means. I mean, when you talk about education, it's laying out all the facts for people and allowing them to make their own decisions. And Vancouver has actually been quite successful in this. They've tried to reduce their solid waste from 2008. They want it in half by 2020. And they've seen a massive drop in the amount of waste just through education. So we already know that works, but now City Council is taking it a step further and forcing people to comply. And that's not education. That's basically forcing them to do exactly what they're told. And the other thing that really bothers me about this is if a ban is put in place, the effect that this will have on small businesses. It's already quite difficult to run a small business in Vancouver. Property is so expensive to rent space, and small businesses definitely need to cut their costs where they can. And if they're looking at providing reusable bags, that's much more expensive. Paper bags are also much more expensive. So inevitably, if this is put in place, they will be driving people out of business. And I mean, the other really troubling thing about this is we don't actually know that plastic bags are the worst thing for the environment compared to other options. In 2011, there was a report out of the UK where they actually examined this and found that paper bags are much worse for the environment across. There was 9 ways that they compared them, and they were worse in all 9. And the same thing with reusable bags. You would have to use them, they said, from 94 times to over 1,000 times, depending on how this reusable bag was made, to reduce the footprint of that bag compared to the plastic bags that you would use. So this is just this city council trying to look good as opposed to actually following the science.
No, they don't always follow the science, politicians, when they come up with these moves. This argument over banning plastic bags has been going on a long time, and I remember discussing this with someone who said, well, it actually depends. Do you live near a plastic bag factory, or are you closer to a paper bag factory? How many trees will be cut down to make the paper bags versus how are you sourcing the plastic for the plastic bag? Is it coming from recyclable material and so on? It's much more complex than paper good, plastic bag, reusable good, disposable bad. Much more complex than that. I was discussing this on the radio about a week or two ago when Montreal started talking about it, and someone called in to say, Brian, don't you remember they brought in the plastic bag as a way to save trees? It was regarded as an environmentally friendly measure, and I'd forgotten about that.
And now so many of the plastic bags are either recyclable or compostable. So if the city were to just look at maybe putting more recycling containers for these plastic bags, you wouldn't be sending them to the landfill, so they wouldn't end up there. That would be a better option. I mean, there's lots of things that the city can do. Reducing waste that goes to the landfill is a very noble goal and something that the city should definitely be looking into, but there's other ways around this. A lot of people in Vancouver are using the reusable bags because they work better. I myself live very close to a grocery store. I walk there to get my groceries. So using a plastic bag that eat into your hand as you're trying to walk down with the big carton of milk, they don't work well. Sometimes they break, maybe because they're the recyclable or compostable ones and they're quite thin. So I've bought several reusable bags. That's what I go to the store with, and that's what I use. And I guess reducing my carbon footprint is a side effect of that, but mostly I made the choice because it works better for me. So that's something I think the city should be encouraging, is more people to make those kind of decisions because they work better, as opposed to banning a plastic bag outright. It seems insane to me.
And Adam, one of the things that they do, and it's not just politicians in Vancouver, it's politicians across the board, is that you mentioned reducing solid waste. This is a real issue that cities everywhere have to deal with. Landfill issues, solid waste issues, and they want to reduce it. That reduced cost. There's many reasons to do it, but there's always, when they make the argument, they don't go for the full range of reasons. It's a moral hectoring that they get into about, don't you care about the planet? Let's save the planet. And they don't get into, reasons such as yours is, well, these thick straps won't hurt your hands as you walk back from the store. The bags break less frequently. Look, I'm a dog owner. Dog owners know what I'm talking about. Those plastic bags don't get used once and thrown away, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And the people who wouldn't be taking a plastic bag would have to buy separate plastic bags for that purpose. So really, we're not looking at reducing things. It is just kind of that moral grandstanding that you mentioned. San Francisco was a city that banned the plastic bag. Before they implemented the ban, plastic bags only made up 1% of the garbage. So is it a good idea to reduce that? Yes, of course. But when you look at the grand scheme of garbage that you could be reducing or encouraging people maybe to not buy certain things with a lot of packaging and then throw that packaging out, plastic bags are really a small issue. But like you say, it looks good. It makes the city look good. It makes us look like we're going to be the greenest city 2020, which is something that we hear, a slogan that we hear in Vancouver a lot. And it's mostly, for me, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's concerning that so much of our tax money that's going to city council is now going to be devoted to studying whether we can ban plastic bags and how we're going to do it.
And coffee cups.
And coffee cups, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine what would you do if you go to Starbucks to get your latte in the morning and you don't have a cup and they don't have anything to give you. You have to buy one of the reusable ones every time when you forget your cup.
Or you have to sit there and drink out of the China cup, but you can't leave.
Yes.
So it is bizarre, but these are the things politicians concern themselves with when they don't have greater issues to deal with. Of course, Vancouver City Council, I've been to the downtown east side. They do have greater issues to deal with. Ada, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
You can read Ada Slavinsky in Vancouver 24 hours, and you see her stuff on my Facebook page from time to time, facebook.com/Brian Lilley. Make sure you click the like button and get my feed in yours.